Hey, what's up, everyone? This is David Greenspan, and I want to welcome you back to Season 4 of the Mindshare Podcast. Additional podcasts are available at mindshare101.com and on all the major podcast platforms. This week's episode is sponsored by Kit's Keep in Touch Systems, the Buzz Conference, and EPM, Equity Prime Mortgage. EPM, formerly known as Equity Prime Mortgage, is a great mortgage lender based out of Atlanta, Georgia, where their mission is simply empowering people more. In fact, as one of the many ways they do that, they have brought Mindshare 101 on to offer the exclusive Mindshare X Realtor Training Program to realtors across the USA. And I was recently in Atlanta speaking on stage at their EPMX real estate event, and I got to experience their culture firsthand. It is awesome. So make sure you follow them on Instagram at EPM Plus to keep up with everything they're doing. And if you're not already, hit up the Buzz Conference on Instagram and give them a follow at the Buzz Conference. Also, make sure that you get this month's latest copy of the Buzz Digital Magazine. It is a extra special issue that you're not going to want to miss. So make sure you go to their website, www.thebuzzconference.com, and again, grab the Buzz Digital Magazine. And when was the last time that you checked out the Kit's Cross-Channel Marketing Suite? This is your full-on marketing tool set, starting with Loop CRM to help keep you organized, the most personalized and effective direct mail newsletters. You've got email newsletters, websites, social media content, super easy 3-click landing pages, action plans, drip campaigns, and so much more to help you manage your business, generate more leads and more referrals, and build that mindshare to drive even more sales. You can learn more on my site, mindshare101.com, by clicking on Marketing. And as you know, we are on a push to get to 100 reviews. And so I'd like to ask you, if you haven't yet, please take 2 minutes. Go rate the show. Leave a review. We're making it super easy for you. And all you have to do is go to ratethispodcast.com/Mindshare101. Again, that's ratethispodcast.com/Mindshare101. And as always, thank you in advance. Today's episode is number 168. She is the EVP of Industry Relations at Rate My Agent and founder of Intentionalities. She's an expert at connecting the dots, a serial entrepreneur, public relations, and integrated marketing strategist with over 25 years experience launching new products and brands. Her passion lies in finding hidden connections between people and experiences and helping to amplify those relationships to drive success. She counts Adobe, AdWorks, First, Happikins, IBM, Lucky Bug, Relola, and Wake Radiology among her past projects. Her fluency in design as well as technology puts her in a sweet spot. But she remains driven by the insatiable desire to deliver remarkable customer experiences. She's an Inman ambassador, was identified as one of the top 100 influencers in real estate, and won the Riz Media 2022 Newsmaker Award as a trendsetter. This week on the show, I am joined by serial entrepreneur and fellow marketing strategist, Molly McKinley. Molly, welcome back to the Mindshare Podcast.
Hi, friend. How are you?
Oh my God, I'm doing amazing. It's nice to have you back. It's amazing to have you back.
I know. Gosh, it's been years. I think the last time I was here was when I was with AdWorks.
Oh my God, is that long ago, right? It's crazy how time flies though, isn't it?
Yes, we go back a long way, friend.
We really do. Well, it's good to have you, and I thank you for making the time today. And hey, it was so amazing to see you recently in Atlanta. I don't know, I made the joke when I walked out there. All of my Canadian listeners are going to laugh about it because I've been making this joke for a while. But it's kind of that thing of we actually got to see people and be back with people. And it was so nice to just, have conversation, be back live in person, get to do, what we do is all marketing talk and stuff. But yeah, it was really nice.
I totally agree. Yeah. Atlanta was like the first time where I felt like I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? That, I felt like we were kind of back,
Well, you see what happened to me though was we've been in the dark. And then I crossed over to the States and it's the light was coming straight at me. And then it's I was there for a few days enjoying the light. And then I left and I came back and I went right back in the dark. But we are seeing a light at the end of the tunnel at this point here, so we are excited about that. It seems like we're getting there,
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It's cool. But hey, let's talk some marketing, because we always have this fun conversation with this stuff. And I wanted to ask you, there's a lot of confusion as to the definition of the word brand.
Yes.
Many people think that it's about a logo and a set of colors. How would you define the word brand for everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I think Douglas Rushkoff says it best. He has written a couple books. One is Throwing Rocks at the Google Bus. The other is Life Incorporated. And, a brand is really a stand-in for the feeling or the humanity of a company. It's how you feel, and we know as marketers that decision-making happens in the executive part of our brains, and that we need to be able to connect to that part of our clients or our, whoever we're reaching, their brains, right? And we do that through brand, the emotional connective tissue of what a company embodies. And we use colors and we use words and we use all of these tools of, what people associate with the brand to be able to tell that story instantly. Right. So a brand is truly a collection of all of those things. But the heart of it is the way we feel. And we know that because when we think of Nike, right, we think of yes, right? And it's that feeling that really is what a brand is. It's the stand-in for that emotional connection to its mission and purpose. And people just really miss that, and it's tricky because they start to choose logos and colors that look like everyone else, right? But then they lose the heart of what they're all about. So that's sort of the mission I'm on, is how do we infuse that humanity, that emotional connection, the tissue back into what marketing and branding is supposed to be.
I love the way you just defined that whole thing. I mean, it's so different, right? Because again, a lot of people really get lost in the whole thing of colors and logos and business cards and websites, and how often we speak to people as, especially new in the industry. I'm getting my website set up, and as soon as that's ready, I'm going to get out there and do things. And you're like, you're missing what the idea of brand is. And I think that when people dig deep and truly understand who they are, and truly understand the experiences that they're going to leave behind and what people are going to remember, that overall is really what your brand comes down to.
It is, right? And so like Douglas Rushkoff, he defines it very well, because he's like, back in the day, like you used to go to, the Quaker to purchase the oats, right? And so if you didn't have a great experience or the oats were stale or were at whatever, you could go back to that human, the Quaker, right? And, you'd be able to make it right because there was that connection to the product itself. But as companies got bigger and bigger and the supply chain got wider and wider, we don't have that intimate personal connection with the company. And so why do you think Quaker Oats has the image of the Quaker on their box, right? To instill that same sort of trust to replace the lack of the human connection. But now where we are with marketing technologies, we actually can have a one-to-one conversation with our clients, right? So we are sort of going to this 360, full circle back to the beginning, where we can have that human brand, but we're still not playing there yet, right? We're still in this sort of weird, even though we can have that intimate connection, via social media or one-to-one targeting or whatever, we still just haven't, we're still sort of operating in this sort of generic, removed way. And I think consumers are expecting more. They want to have a connection and a relationship with their brands. And, with color psychology and all kinds of interesting, data that exists, it doesn't need to be random. We can be hyper intentional about how we show up and contribute and become a part of our clients' lives.
And this would come back to figure out who the clients are and then being intentional about our approach. And you really leverage that word intentional a lot throughout your brand.
I do.
And we're going to get into some of the exciting things you're doing with that shortly. I'm going to come back to those, but I wanted to ask you this, but more specifically to that word.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you to be intentional? And, what should everybody know, or why should they want to focus on being intentional in their own right?
That's a really great question. So, like, the definition of intentionality, right, is a philosophy about being purposeful on purpose, right? So, what I love about that is, even in the world in marketing, right? Everybody talks about hacks,
Yep.
and how we're just kind of like reacting to things. And, that just doesn't sit with me. I like the idea of manifesting, of driving the ship, right? And not just reacting to what's showing up, but like, where do we want to go? Why are we going there? And how are we going to get there with purpose, on purpose? And to me, that's the heart of what intentional actually means. Now, I'm a 500-hour yoga teacher. So for me, so much of what I do, is a reference point or a nod to that really deep training that I did in yoga. And in yoga, oftentimes at the beginning, we set our intention. What do we want to get out of this practice? Right? Why are we here? Why are we showing up on our mat? And it's just that simple reminding, that grounding, that recentering of the what and the why, so that we can get to the how. And again, we're in control of the experience, right? And that to me is the essence of all of it.
I like that idea of being proactive about it rather than being reactive. I mean, this is something that we talk a lot about with our clients in terms of just even your day to day, right? And I think that kind of goes very much in line with what you're saying here about being very proactive about what you do in a day, why you do it in a day, how you do it in a day. And I truly believe, and I mean, I'm very big into the manifesting, going beyond obviously even just my friends like yourself who are, constantly kind of pushing it out there and, the good vibes. I mean, Jennifer as well has been very much on that for a number of years now, and has led me into that. And I mean, through reading and feeding your brain and the development, you start to realize that a lot of this way of thinking and being intentional and being proactive with what you do in a day is actually what's going to create the environment that you really want to be in.
Yeah,
and it's very
right?
Cool that you can do that, right?
It really is, right? And I'm a big believer in vision boards. I'm a big believer in being having a vision. I'm a big believer in strategy. My roots of marketing are public relations, where because the lead times, this is me showing my age, right? Of where you would get into print publications was 6 months to a year out, right? Yeah. Like, it was planning that was required, right? We were working on really long lead times. And that's because that's my training. That's kind of who I am. Like, I'm a long-term player. Branding isn't something that you can be agile about, right? Mm-hmm. And because if you are just constantly pivoting and shifting, then nobody actually knows who you are and what you what you mean, so you have to have branding is one of those things where you really do need to have, need to know who you are. You need to have a long-term strategy, and you need to be able to have the guts to stick to the strategy. Because a lot of times, we just pull up shop before we have a chance for something to actually root. But again, coming from a public relations background and sort of my history of who I am as a marketer, I don't really play short games. It's trying to find this balance between, being agile, nimble, in a digital world, like the lean startup mentality, versus knowing what it takes to be consistent and considerate and intentional long-term, and just trying to find that mix of that middle is a tricky thing to do sometimes.
Well, and there's always the challenge is that consistency and that daily effort that needs to go in. And I do believe that, again, when you truly understand who you are and what you're all about, you do have the right intentions, you do have the vision, you do, again, put in the effort. This all comes back to it. Now, you talk about strategy, and I was wondering, where do you think agents are most confused? And when we look at the industry and we look at, the audience here, where are they most confused or need more understanding when it comes to an overall marketing strategy, or even a specific tactic, like you brought up, let's say the digital thing versus maybe the print thing, where are you seeing confusion that lies out there? What kind of clarification can we give to people or just sort of bring up that people could even think about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does come back to, the thing that I see and hear all the time are agents trying to emulate other people, right? And so they end up losing themselves based on what they think they should be doing versus, just kind of sticking to their own plan. Most agents, if they really think about the core, like why they got into it, what they want their business to look like, how they want to connect with their people, and what they have uniquely to offer, if they can stay in that lane and just get really hyper specific about those pieces of their business. I mean, we always hear the sayings, there's riches in the niches, right? But I really do fundamentally believe that the agents who are truly, truly thriving, they have found their lane, right? And what I see happening with most agents who are struggling is that they haven't quite found their lane. They don't know who quite where they fit, and they're not really communicating their value. They end up looking kind of watered down or like everybody else. And it's really, really hard to be that magnet to attract your people to you, right? If you're kind of just looking like everybody else. And so I think there's that little bit of fear for folks to kind of, be boldly themselves, if you will, because they're afraid they're going to alienate potential audiences. But I think that there's plenty for everyone, and there's plenty, but you just have to kind of own it and get really, really consistent about who you are and why you're in business and how you're different. And then those people will come to you. But it's that look like everybody else stuff to me that I feel is most problematic.
Figure out who you are, and you can probably figure out who you are, and your people will figure out who you are, and then you will figure out who each other are. And now you'll find that lane, right?
100%. I mean, it is like a magnet. I mean, it's the same way that we found each other, right?
Yep.
Like finds like.
Yeah.
And you just have to kind of trust that you find your people because you have synergies, right? You share the language, you have commonality, and those are the people that you're going to want to do business with anyway, because it's easier, right? You flow.
Of course. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
And we're talking a little bit about energy here. Again, that's me as the yogi coming out in this. But because I've done it so many times over and over again, this is not theory. This is experience. And so it's like, how do we really get people to say, okay, this isn't just hocus pocus at this point. Like, this is how it works. Right.
I was just looking. I'm in the midst of reading a book right now called The Universe Has Your Back.
Okay, I have not read it, but I'm going to write it down.
It is by Gabrielle Bernstein. The Universe Has Your Back. Transform fear to faith. I know, again, you, positive energies, all that background and the mindsets, and then, just talking about, again, fear. And we know fear stops people from doing all sorts of things, right? Fear stops people from taking the next level in life. I mean, it is probably the biggest motivator there is out there, and maybe not for the right reasons, but it's what really does cause people to do or not to do.
Yeah, I always say like the three crutches are fear, guilt, and shame, right? And like as a marketer, understanding psychological behaviors or motivators is really, really critical, right? So I do a lot of archetype work when it comes to branding, because when we understand archetypes, what motivates this person and what are the fears of this person, right? And then you can start to speak in a language that they are receptive to. And again, it's just that layer of intention, that understanding, that going deeper, and so that we're not just sort of sitting on the surface of things, right? Because fear is nuanced, right? Fear is a macro idea, but when we get to the micro ideas underneath fear, is it fear of failure? Is it fear of success? Is it fear of, what is the fear? And we really can get deeper and dig deeper into that, the nuance of it, then we can really start to speak in languages that people understand.
I got this like high level thought around what that micro, again, high level micro, right? Go take it from the macro, just fear. But it's that idea that I think because of the world we're in today, and we look at the market and we look at the tactics that are being used out there, video and social and the new ways that people are going out and doing things. I think people have a fear of either, not understanding. And I guess this is the micro, but not understanding, how to take advantage of these things. And then also that fear of, well, what are they going to think? What are they going to say? Judgment. It really comes back to that fear of other people's thoughts.
Yeah, of being judged, right? I mean, so. And again, like understanding that it is a fear of judgment, right? Because this goes back to sort of like emotional intelligence, right? Like when we can relate to each other, human to human, right? And we can, move beyond some of these fears. And it's like, okay, so what if there's judgment there, right? Like then you can move into the equal and opposite of what that is, right? So that's starting to get into energy work too, right? So like when you're like, okay, if I understand that the equal and opposite of judgment is actually or is acceptance, perhaps.
I was going to say, acceptance, right?
Right. So how do I manifest or focus or self-talk in a way that is accepting so that I can counter the energy or the negative, the drain, the pull of the judgment, right? So this is that mindset. The mindset.
That is hard stuff to do.
It is because we live in macro emotions, right? Most of us don't have a lot of EQ. And so we're talking about pain. We're talking about love. We're talking about fear. We're talking about these big words. But like love, there's pet love, kid love, happiness of work love. There's romantic love. There's family love. There's all kinds of love, right? But so we have to really get to the nuance of that word so that we can actually get to the equal and opposite. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally know what you're saying. You're going to love this book. You're going to love this book because it is so up your alley with this stuff. And I mean, I know how much you're into this. And I said it's hard because I live it as well. And I'm constantly in the battle that I know I should not be in because I know that the mindset and the thinking needs to go up this path. Yet you're always feeling like you always almost feel like you're at that fork in the road. You're like, no, go this way. Yet everything's trying to push you the wrong way. And so where you're going is almost, you almost got to realize that and sort of like do a U-turn, like back up and go back this way again and try to stay on that track all the time. And it takes a ton of effort. We also know though, that as you put that effort in, you actually are going to get the rewards back on the other side.
That's it. And that's where it becomes like a master manifestor, right? Where you understand, the law of the universe of the equal and opposite. These are hermetic principles here. This is very old, ancient stuff here that we're talking about. This is not newfangled, stuff, but it does.
Tried, tested, and true. Let's say that though.
It is, right? Tried, tested, and true, but it's just, again, we've lost some of this wisdom, right? Because, but if you start to dig and years ago, I started reading a book a week, and honest to God, that was like the game changing moment for me. I don't do that now because I don't have the time that I used to have to do that effort. But those were really big growth years for me. I just could not get in and I could not consume enough. And just, one book led to another book, led to another one, to another one.
I did 4 in January. Luckily beautiful. With the trip to, coming down and back from Atlanta gave us a lot of time to be able to do that.
Yes.
Much the same, I'm into number 2 this, this month already. Right. And so that'll be finished hopefully by maybe the end of the weekend and on to number 3 of this month. Right. And when you get into, I know where you're at, like when you get into that groove and you just start feeding, it's like when when you're like really hungry, you know what I mean? You just sit there and eat and you should just stop, but it's like, I'm just eating and eating and eating. It's the same idea, but it's the brain. And it's actually like, keep eating. Let's go. Yes. Just keep feeding that thing. And it is so awesome what it does, right?
Now the lights start turning on, right? And and all of the connections are being made, right? And then you get to that deeper level of understanding. And again, nuance, right? getting out of the macro and into the micro. And that is where we actually truly connect, human to human, right? It's the big stuff is surface. The small stuff is the connective tissue.
With all of that, I guess maybe the question goes already answered, maybe, but talking about connecting people, like you've got this driving force, you've got this desire to connect people and again, setting these stages for new experiences and new relationships with others. What is that like? Again, I think it goes without saying, but I mean, that whole thing of connecting people, you are so focused on that. I think it's awesome.
Well, I think it's because I'm a good listener, first of all. I like to be valuable. I like to be valuable to others. And part of that is just listening and knowing when people should see and be with each other, right? There's a beautiful theory that my one of my besties, Deborah Trapin, and I always talk about the theory of the red threads.
Yeah,
that there are these divine connections between people, and for whatever reason, I can see them. And so when I see them or I hear them, I just want to help bring people together. But again, that probably comes back to my public relations background, as marketers, right? Because, where my route as a marketer is how do you tell story through people, right? Through third parties. So, I just have sort of developed that muscle of being a good listener. So,
well, good listeners, you take in a lot and you're able to do a lot with that. And when we're not listening, we're not actually learning properly. And therefore you don't know where you're going next. Right. Now, with that, again, stay on this trend of connecting people. You are the executive vice president for global marketing and industry relations for Rate My Agent. Tell us more. What do you guys do and how are you helping agents?
Yeah, so I'm doing less marketing there, more connections, which is interesting. So Rate My Agent is what I like about what Rate My Agent is doing is that, and actually, at EPMX, Egypt Sherrod said it best. She's like, if she basically said reviews are the show me of 2022 that everybody needs because the entire industry is under disruption, that we all know this. This isn't new. Well, actually, there was a lot of people who raised their hand in that room who said that they hadn't heard some of these things. For agents, sort of their businesses being disrupted with, discount commissions, iBuyings, all of you name it, right? Yeah. It's coming out everywhere. All the prop tech money flowing in right now is all about, changing the business model, right? So I fundamentally believe that the business model will always have a human connection because we have such a spiritual, emotional connection to our homes. I think that is the part where prop tech is getting it wrong, where the investors don't necessarily value the emotional connection to our homes. But I personally think real estate is sacred work. So, and sacred work requires advisory. An advisor. So, I digress. But anyway,
No, but I listen. I want to double down on that right now because I do say that a lot, and I actually am pretty certain. And I mean, all the things that come out of here when I'm on a stage, people seem to have fun, so it's good. But no, I remember saying one thing about I'm not a lead.
Yes.
I'm a homeowner, right? Yeah. I'm a person. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I've got 2 children and my wife that lives with me and. We raise our family there.
Yes.
Right. So it's not when we look at the prop tech and to that, that comment, I'm with you. Right. Like I think that we've lost the sentimental part of this thing and we started to treat people very much like commodities. And again, as leads. Oh, I got another lead. No. Like you have another opportunity to build a new relationship to help a family move into their dream home.
Yes.
Right?
And that affects where kids will go to school, who their neighbors are, and there's just like the trickle down of the humanity, right? If there is anything in this entire world, our home base, this is our sanctuary and where we live, is so critical to who and how we grow. It just can't be, understated. I don't know. For me, like, maybe that's just me because I'm so emotionally connected to my property, and I just have that feeling. But I think most people are, right? And, and so I do think that, what Rate My Agent is doing and what Egypt Sherrod had said, which I thought was just brilliantly stated, was that reviews, right, are agents' chance to show others what it's truly like to work with them. And in our world where everybody is trying to remove the humanity, the equal and opposite per our, conversation.
I like that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is us, the marketers pulling it all back, is creating these human experiences, right? So client experience, the CX of the transaction, right, of the experience is absolutely the thing that everybody should be focused on right now. So if someone's trying to remove the humanity out of the business, then the equal and opposite is to thrust the humanity back into the business, right? And that basically is CX. And the review actually showcases what the experience is. It's the words that tell the story of the experience. Oof. So, right?
Well said. I like that. The words that tell the experience. The story of the experience. It's so true. I mean, we see people on a regular basis touting how much money they've made, how much over asking they've sold for, saying, "Hey, look at me." Yeah. But we know it's not about the look at me. It's like, we want the client to have the best experience possible. And when the client has the best experience possible, that's the win. And then when they turn around and they share their experience, guess who people are looking at? They're looking at you still, right? But they're looking at it from a different set of goggles, glasses, whatever, a different light. Because now they're going, "She said you did a great job." "Oh, did she? That's really nice." There's a whole different way that people are accepting that.
That's it, right? And I'm a believer in the yes and, right? I think that, in our world, it's really hard to break through. So hyper consistency and repetition are really important. I think the latest data I thought I heard something was like, you have to touch someone 21 times before they even like break through, right?
That's crazy. Because 5 years ago, we were saying 8 times?
Yes. Now it's ridiculous, right? So what I love, and again, this is the PR background in me, that third party validation, right? So, having someone else tell the story is so much more powerful and potent than having, than yourself. Like an ad is saying, "Hey, look at me," right? But someone else saying, "Hey, this person is worthy of your attention," has so much more merit than it is when we talk about ourselves. And I think like there was back in the AdWorks days, Jed Carlson, the CEO of AdWorks, he used to cite a Wall Street Journal study that basically saying that your neighbor's doing something was more motivating than any other behavior. And so really understanding that as it relates to, okay, how do I get people to move, right? And not move from homes, but move in behavior, is by having other people say to do this thing, right? That's why testimonials should be on every single email, on every single something. Always validate. Well, I was just going to ask you that and say so specific, I guess, to, that company with Rate My Agent, specific to that, and then to the overall entirety of testimonials and good news and whatnot. How could agents, or why? I guess we've covered the why, but you mentioned one, the email should be on all your emails. What else can people do to kind of take advantage of this? Because I think too, Mal, is that you get that thank you card, you kind of read it, you sort of enjoy it, and then you kind of toss it. And I've tried to encourage people, hold on to that thing, right? Keep it. File it, but don't just file it even, but take it and turn it into something, right? Like you can put together a little bit of a quote unquote brag book, maybe something that's going to be an asset for a listing presentation, right? Like a leave behind. Yeah. You can share good news stories. It can be preemptive where you send it ahead of time. And now people are getting this notion of who you are because other people have painted the picture. So I'm just curious, what kind of ideas or maybe suggestions do you have, for people to focus on getting reviews and then leverage the reviews? Yeah. Well, I mean, to your note point, right? What I like about Rate My Agent too is and I think this is the core differentiator of this platform versus other review platforms, particularly in real estate, is that Rate My Agent doesn't care where the review comes from. The fundamental belief is that agents have earned the words. They're their words, right? They're the words of their clients based on their experiences, So even with like a handwritten note, you can actually take that handwritten note and write in the copy and then have it attributed to the client, verify it to the transaction of where the note was coming from. And then that becomes an online review. There's a couple of things that actually matter about reviews. One of them is the volume of reviews, and the second is the quality of reviews. And so a handwritten note, getting that into sort of that bucket so that we can get that quantitative number up, like these things then affect your Google ranking. Right. So it's like, how do you take something like that would only be for you, like a handwritten note, and turn it into something that can actually drive your business? Right. And so, we all when was the last time you looked at anything on Amazon without subconsciously looking at the star ranking and the number of reviews?
Oh, it's not even subconscious. It's like bang on.
Right?
How many people are 100% though?
And I do it with recipes even.
I do with the books.
Right?
I want to read the books, right?
100%.
I know.
We're looking at two things. We're looking at the number, the star ranking, and we're looking at the number. So if I'm looking at two recipes, right, and one of them has a 5-star but only 3 reviews, and one of them has a 4.5 stars but 45 reviews, I'm going to go for the 4.5 star, right?
Right, quantity.
But these are just those sort of things that we do. And so what the biggest pro tip for agents out there is that most of the time you've got a few reviews here on Facebook, a few reviews on Yelp, a few reviews on LinkedIn, a few reviews here, but to pull them into one place gets that quantitative effect, where we start to get the volume, where we get those subconscious triggers. And that's where reviews can start to work. So I'm like, I don't care if your review is on Zillow or Real Satisfied or Testimonial Tree or wherever it is, bring it into a free Rate My Agent profile so that you have at least one place where you can start to get the cumulative effect of numerous reviews.
So somebody left it for me on Facebook. I'm going to copy and paste it and I'm going to bring it into my Rate My Agent account.
You can do that. Yeah. And then it's another touch point to your client saying, hey, heads up, I'm pulling all my reviews into one space. Just validate that this is legit, and bada boom, bada bing. It's a wonderful way for you to do that. And oh, by the way, what can I do to help you?
There you go.
Right. So that we're always balancing the scales with reciprocity. And that is another thing about intentional business or intentional marketing. The idea of reciprocity is so critical to the foundation of what this actually means. Like, how do we serve each other so that we aren't taking more than we're giving?
I think people miss that in such a big way of, but what's in it for me? And there's the famous line, whiff them, right? But you really change your thinking and go, what can I do for them? What can I do to help them? Until you live it, breathe it, and believe it, you won't see it. But once you get there, you will realize it's going to be coming back tenfold. And you won't even realize how until you start to sort of think to yourself, you're like, I'm getting up every day thinking, how can I help other people? How can I do good for other people? And when that happens, wicked things happen.
I agree. I mean, Katie Clancy.
Katie is amazing.
She is. And she's the self-proclaimed happiest person in real estate. And the reason she is because she's a total giver. And then her business is thriving for it. She has the data to support it. So that she's always my, everybody, go check out what she's doing because, it's working.
She's so awesome. She's so awesome. So here, we said off the top, you are a serial entrepreneur, and it's so amazing to watch everything you're up to. But hey, tell us about intentionalities.
Yeah, so intentionalities was a dream that I had. So I am a super nerd when it comes to tea. It started when I was a very young girl. My mom actually made me a hand-painted China tea set for Christmas one year. And that sort of started this, passion of tea when I was a little girl. And there's a motto that I just absolutely live and die by. And it's the first cup of tea we meet as strangers, the second cup of tea as friends, and the third cup of tea as family. And as it relates to your question about relationships and connecting the dots and everything, I just fundamentally believe that the more we know each other, the easier it will be to create together, to do business together, and to help each other. And so the tea was a dream that I had. I woke up one morning and I had this very, very clear vision of a tea company called Intentionalities, where the herbs of the tea supported the intention. And so I have peace and wellness and love and gratitude and home and equality and prosperity and all of these tea blends, all the ingredients and the plant material, because I consider myself a hobby herbalist, support the intention, right? So wellness tea has the chamomile in it, and love tea has, the vanilla and the rose hips, the stuff that we know. And again, this is like ancient knowledge that people just forget, and I'm really proud of this tea because it has these beautiful, high quality organic ingredients. And it's something that, again, I didn't know what was going to happen when I created it 3 years ago. I just knew I saw it. And so I had to create it. And now, it's still, it's still in motion. And, it's kind of something I believe in.
I think it's I gotta go like more than something you believe in, but it's certainly, I mean, and I say that it with love and in a good way. I mean, it's created its own movement, and we see it through the circle of friends, and we see it through people that are, that are very bought into it. And I mean, you've taken this idea of, again, intentionality to this next level of it. And I guess for a very exciting announcement that I'm going to break, at least on this show a little bit here. I know, it's not live yet, but we are so close. February 22nd to be exact. Is that the date? Is that it?
Yeah, 22.
Tell us about the new book, The Intentional Business. What's it all about?
Yeah, The Intentional Business is really the book that I've been writing for the last 20 years. And it's a calling card of my fundamental beliefs and combination of yogic thought and business thought. As I mentioned, I'm a 500-hour trained yoga teacher. Mm-hmm. And there were so many times when I was doing the training that I thought, oh my gosh, if only we had this knowledge, this shared language in business, because we all come from such diverse backgrounds when we come to sit around a table to create together. And it's like the first two chapters are part of the 7 the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which are an 8-limbed path. And the 2 paths are yama and niyama, the right way of living with yourself and the right way of living in the world. And when you apply this knowledge into business, it gives us a shared language that is really rooted in right living, right? And I guess for me in business, so many things happen all the time where we do wrong by each other because we're motivated by profit, or because, we have, our intentions are just about the bottom line. Mm-hmm. And we're missing the whole picture of what businesses can and could be. And John Mackey, from, the founder of Whole Foods, wrote a book called Conscious Capitalism, which really sparked a fire in me because, he was like, well, why would we apply this conscious thinking, enlightened thinking to business? And the answer was pretty simple. It's because it's the best way to reach the most amount of people quickly, because our businesses touch and spread to so many different aspects. And so, I just felt compelled, to, a yogi business entrepreneur, those two sort of mishmashed ideas, created a unique voice for me. Whether it's going to land with people, I have no idea. But again, this was something that I felt compelled to share.
Speaking of people, who are the people? Who's it for?
When I am writing this book, I am writing it for women entrepreneurs. I am writing it for the micro businesses, the people who started business because they wanted to do something different. I wrote this book for people who, like me, were sitting around a boardroom table, looking at the people in the room thinking, how the hell did I get here? I don't really even like these people, I don't like what they're saying. I don't like how they're treating customers. I don't like how surely business can and should be different, right? If there's one thing about me, I deeply care about my clients. I deeply care about customers. And if I'm a part of a project, I really want to do right by it, and so the book is for people who care. And that sounds kind of cheesy, maybe, but
no, I don't think so at all. I think, again, this comes back to the depth, right? This comes back. And as you say, a lot of these ancient things from hundreds, thousands of years ago.
Yeah. 2000 years is yoga, right?
That we don't focus on because we are so caught up in how fast and how crazy our lives are, and the hustle and the bustle and the connections. And many don't bother looking back. And I would say that there's some positive to the fact that you just, you're focused, move forward, don't dwell on the past, all that. And I'm there. Much the same too. I think that there's a lot of learnings. And when we talk about, let's say, cliche lines, well, there's a reason they became a cliche, right? There's obviously some validity to why it's being said. Now, as we talk about, looking around a room and wondering why, or looking at troubles that are out there, when you look at the industry from a bird's eye view, and and I'm not saying some hierarchy, I'm just saying kind of looking down on the industry and being in it, and we've been in it a long time. You watch people doing their thing. Is there anything, or what is the thing? Is there something that troubles you and that you really want to see change and get better in this industry?
Yeah, I think we're in this middle of the Great Resignation. Right? There's no doubt people are leaving at record numbers. And, the thing that I'm seeing is people are misaligned with the reason they were born, and again, that sounds kind of weird or cheesy, but again, it's we get into these ruts of dis-ease, and we're doing things that aren't aligned with our natural God-given abilities. And if we look at each other, saying, okay, I get this all the time. When I'm in a CMO role, right, is everybody wants you to fit this bill. They want you to be data, numbers, blah, 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 blah. That's the archetype of a CMO today. It's not who I am. Mm-hmm. I'm not. I'm squarely a creative. I'm all heart, right? But when you end up getting into this mode of, I do this all the time too, where you kind of shift who you are and your natural talents, abilities into something that someone else wants you to be. Right. And then you end up losing all of the goodness of who you are. Right. And so as an industry, there's just a lot of square pegs and round holes, it just, and again, is it because of greed? Is it because everybody's going for this hockey stick? There's our had to throw that.
We got it in there. I love it.
The hockey stick growth, right? And of course, why do we have to have hockey stick growth? Because we have outside investors who are looking for return, right? But where is this moment? And I think for me, with COVID, where you have the big bucks and the big winners won big, and then so many of the local independent stuff lost, right? Mm-hmm. To me, that is the thing that should be the wake-up call for each of us. The very fabric, the soul of our communities, the soul of our culture is based on people living in their purpose. It's there is a difference between a, croissant that is made on a machine versus made by a pastry chef infusing it with heart and soul, right? Mm-hmm. And we have to decide as a culture, do we want everything to be big box and manufactured, or do we value people being who they were born to be, and are we willing to pay for it? So it's this shop local. But for me, real estate plays right into that, right? Because it's this, are we going to just all go into sort of a watered down brand, or are we going to be able to have agents creating these really beautiful, niche-y, boutique-y, expressions of their unique differentiators? So if that makes sense. I don't know.
No, it does. It's funny you brought that up. Somebody this morning on a coaching call, one of my clients had made mention. She said she was just shocked at how many of these boutique type of brokerages, or these individual brokerages that people have never heard of, are opening up.
Yeah. And once they reach a certain level of success, they're gobbled up by the big guys.
They do that, or they start to streamline so much that they've lost their way. They've lost what got them to where they are. And right. I think that happens often with people. And I think you've said that, incredibly well. It's people losing that, like that square peg in the round hole. Like, is this really who you are and how you fit? And this will circle right back to the top of our conversation around branding, right? Really ultimately figuring out, is that me? What am I about? What do I bring to this table?
And what does success actually mean?
Right. To me as an individual.
To me as an individual.
Right. Yes.
Because the only thing that, if success equals money, right, then the goal will always be an acquisition. Right? Because that's money. But if success means that I provide for my family, that I hire people, that I love them well, that they are able to provide for their family, that I am giving back to community that I am a part of, and that I can serve well, that I know my people, and that my business actually matters to the people that I touch, to me, then that becomes right living, right?
I'm going to circle back to that success question or topic in just a second, but I wanted to ask you, just to kind of counter the question I asked a moment ago about what are the challenges that are concerning you, and what are you seeing on the same side, on the more positive side of things? What do you absolutely love about our industry? What excites you about what's ahead this year?
Yeah, I mean, I fell in love with the real estate industry when I joined. I came from technology, right? And so technology, I had a beautiful experience because, again, I was a high-tech PR with an agency in Silicon Valley. And I got to know my people and my media very well, but there was a coldness or a bigness about it that was hard to feel like you were a part of the industry. With real estate, what I love about it is that there really is an industry. And although it's huge numbers, it still feels small and accessible. And if you're willing to, raise your hand and serve on a board or an association, or getting involved in industry events like Inman or whatever it is, right? That you can actually create and carve out space for yourself. And that the industry itself is always willing, open arms, to create space for others, right? And that, to me, is, so again, like full circle here. The real estate, maybe because it's made up of people, or it's a series or a connection or collection of micro businesses, it is, to me, a shining example of how the humanity in business can actually and will thrive together. And that part of it is, inspired to me. So
that's cool. I love the way you took that full circle again. So
now we're just drawing.
I know, it just keeps intertwining with each other today. It's so awesome. So looking at that then, as we look ahead, and again, we could spend a full hour just talking about this one question.
Yeah.
So it's more of a kind of a rapid fire, but 2022 trends, anything that people should really set their sights on or be focused on, or something that when you say from marketing, like, guys, if you're not doing, do anything there? I'm sure you got a wealth of stuff you want to share right now, but we're going to keep it to like a...
Yeah. My rapid fire is, if you don't have a review strategy, you need a review strategy. Again, cool. That is number one. And again, like, don't take it from me, Rate My Agent. It's your show me what it's like. And it's the synergistic combination of the consumer experience and showing your differentiation in the consumer experience. That's the story of the words of your experience. Reviews are absolutely critical because it's both of the things that matter most: consumer experience and storytelling, right? Differentiation, validation. So, I mean, I think if I were going to be saying, there are 3 elements that you have to have in your business plan. It's third-party validation, it is consumer experience, and then differentiation. And that's where the review is the hub of all of those. So that's to me. Personally, I'm a big believer in a goodness loop. And I think this is the responsibility that we have to each other. It's how does my business give back to the people that I serve? And the people's, or the populations that you serve are your vendors, your partners, your clients, your employees, and yourself. And getting really intentional about identifying those different humans that your business touches and figuring out what you have extra to give back to those groups. Right. And so that we start to align our businesses with the natural laws of the universe and making sure that we aren't just taking without replenishing. And then we start to align ourselves with the laws of energy. And so like for me, like those are 2 big things, the reviews are very practical. Yep. You can go to Rate My Agent today and get that started. But then the longer, deeper work is how do I make sure that my business is actually reciprocal?
So speaking of, reviews and then looking at that, and the goal is obviously to have success, and you started going down that road a moment ago, and I said I'm going to circle back on that because this is actually sort of my favorite question to ask. But and you may have just answered it for us, but
okay.
How do you know it's been a successful day for you?
Oh, gosh. How's it?
See, I feel like you just answered it, but I'm going, wait a second. I got to come back to that for her.
Are you talking about for me personally?
Yeah, like you lay your head down at the end of a day because you mentioned something really important. And I don't want to lead you into the answer here, but I think again, you did sort of say it, and it's, you cannot just be focused on the money. You cannot just be focused on the monetary. It cannot be about you and just that. And and again, in my mind, if that's the only way you measure yourself, that's going to be a disappointing way to live because you're not going to have the successes you want every single day. And again, if it's just based on self-worth, is like how much money you're making. I don't believe that the values are in the right place.
Yeah, that's certainly not my values. I live on a farm, right? So I have 4 acres here of trees and animals and gardens. And, so for me, when I put my head on the pillow, I want to know that my children are well cared for. That my land is well cared for. I often have, a dog on my head and a dog on my side. And, I just like, for me, that's happiness, is being surrounded by the love, having the really deep connections, knowing that when people think of me, they know that I'm a person of my word and that I am going to be a problem solver and I can bring value. And to me, like, that's it. Am I living in alignment with my values? And because true happiness, the very definition of true happiness is alignment of thought, word, and action. And when we can live that way, right, then we're happy. And sometimes it's really, really easy to get out of alignment with a client or a project or whatever, because our values
because of social media or because of email, because we expose ourselves too much to the media. Absolutely.
100%. And that happens all the time. When I feel most diseased is when I am working with people that don't share the same values. Mm-hmm. And then that's the stuff that keeps you awake, And so really the Quan, the Jerry Maguire term, the Quan is to find and to build with people that you have shared values. And to me, like, that's what it's all about.
That is certainly what it's all about. So a great answer, a deep answer, and I expected nothing less. Final question here. What last words or tips can you share for everybody that's tuned in just from any of the topics that we covered today, above and beyond, to, sort of help themselves sort of get out there, get that next level of success, build the mind share, and just really hit that place that they want to be at, and here, I guess it's a perfect question. I would sort of throw this into that. We know that as of today, this is the day in the calendar that, typically speaking, more than 80% of people give up or fail on their New Year's resolutions. It's that sort of 6-week mark in the year because they're not maybe aligned properly. But I also want to say to all of those people, don't give up, don't quit, don't do that. Stay in go mode. We have an entire year ahead of us still. What can you share with people? Just some final words there.
Yeah, I think, the idea of soft skills, right? And again, like when we were at EPMX, Gary Vee got on stage and was talking. He just wrote the new book about EQ being your super skills. On one hand, I was like, dang, it takes a dude for this message to actually come across. Like Gary Vee.
He was very inspired that day. He was wearing a Mindshare hat on stage. Just got to put that.
Yes, it was a beautiful moment. My heart swelled up 10 sizes for you. I was just so happy for you. And look, I love some Gary Vee. But at the same time, like these are the things that we've been talking about as women for years and years in business, and they have been marginalized with these skills of nurturing and care and listening and depth as being soft skills. And now you have a man, a very successful businessman, who's coming out saying that these are the skills that are your superpower, and this will break through because of the messenger, And so there's this beautiful moment where it's like, thank you, finally. But why does it have to take that to be heard, right? So there's this. So to your question, I think we're at this really interesting intersection in history where we understand that we are in desperate trouble if we don't wake up. Right? We're just in constant consuming mode, and we aren't living in accord with the laws of the universe, of nature, right? And we have got to up-level this wisdom, this knowledge. And Gary Vee sees it. He was saying, no, our very culture is going to collapse if we don't wake the fuck up. Excuse me for that, but
no, it's okay.
He gets it.
We're Canadian. We speak French.
Okay, good. Thank goodness. Because I was like, oh, bleep, 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 bleep.
No, it's good. And I will take this moment to say that, on a much deeper level, I do believe I agree with that 1,000,000%. I think that, as individuals, it's crucial. I think in your own right, personally, family oriented, business wise, you got to find that. Much the same. I want to sit here today and proudly say that I think as collectively as Canadians, and this is very north of the border stuff right now, but as Canadians, I think that finally the country's decided to wake up. And we're seeing some massive change, and I know that people worldwide are hearing about it. And I just, and I've been very public or not consistently, but just saying to people, I'm proud of what's going on right now in this very moment in time. And I think it's an amazing thing to watch people stand up and somewhat wake up. And realize what is going on out there, and it's time for change. And so to echo what you're saying there, or come right back to that one, going from this nation of waking up and doing, I think there's a wonderful catalyst to be able to take that now and go as an individual. I can operate the exact same right and do the same things for myself on other things that I believe in, on other desires that I have. It's never too late to make a change, right?
And it's not. And it's like, what do we care about collectively? And do our businesses reflect what we care about? And if they don't, how can we be more intentional about recrafting businesses aligned with what we care about, right? To me, that is the heart and soul of everything that we're talking about, right? So, and I forget what your second part of the question was that you were asking me.
Just parting words for people, but I think I think we've covered it.
Yeah.
This has been deep. I like it. I like it a lot. I like it.
That's
No,
what
seriously.
happens when you have a yogi business.
Well, yeah, but I expected nothing less, so that's why I love chatting with you. I feel like I get aligned after a conversation all the time. I tell you that all the time, though. But anyways, Mal, where can people find you? How can people stay in tune with the book launch that's coming up very shortly? Shares so that they can go and find and learn and just take more of you in.
Thank you. I am building a website right now. It's live. It's underway, called intentionaltogether.com. That is going to be the hub of the tea and the book and intentional marketing services. And I also have a Facebook group called The Intentional Business that we are starting to create content for. We'll have conversations. I love to have you over on that channel. I see Deborah Trapin, my soul sister. She, again, is a huge part of my inspiration and, is locked, elbow to elbow with me on, trying to change the conversation. And inspire people to think differently about how we spend our best waking hours at work. And instead of doing good being an afterthought, how can our core be about affecting change?
Absolutely amazing. A big, big, big thank you. Wish I could reach across and give you a big hug, but thank you. Thank you for everything you shared today. Thank you for taking the time. And again, I want to echo that and say to everybody, go out there, follow. Deborah has been a guest on the show. We certainly appreciate that. She's awesome. Follow both of these ladies. Definitely tap in with Molly and check out what she's up to with intentionalities and just, the whole vibe and the spirit of Molly McKinley. I want to, just suggest to everybody, just make sure you follow and stay in touch with her. But again, Molly, once again, a big thank you to you.
Thank you, friend. Appreciate you.
You're either listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're on my site, make sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle for Realtors. This is a 31-page ebook packed with a ton of tips and tricks for you. Plus, there's a ready-to-go 90-day social media content calendar to help you build more mindshare so that you can get more market share. And if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching to help you get to your next level, just get in touch with me. We'll set up a free consultation call, learn more about what you're looking to achieve and how we will help you do just that. Also, don't forget that our push to 100 is on. All you have to do, and this is super easy, is go to ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Again, that's ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. And of course, if you haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. I want to once again thank Jason Fraser and the entirety Equity Prime Mortgage crew for sponsoring today's episode. Make sure you connect with them on Instagram at EPM Plus and keep an eye out for Mindshare X because we have created a powerful partnership to help everyone build a whole ton of mindshare. Of course, I also want to thank Virginia Munden and the Buzz Conference for sponsoring today's episode. Be sure to visit their website, www.thebuzzconference.com, and follow them on Instagram as well, at The Buzz Conference, to keep tabs on all of the awesome events they are always hosting, along with getting this very special latest copy of the Buzz Digital Magazine. And of course, I want to thank Kids Keep in Touch Systems for sponsoring today's episode. If you haven't checked us out yet, just go to my site, mindshare101.com, and click on marketing. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.